All right, so I do have CarPlay inside of my truck now, which has a Ford Sync 2 system. It works great. It's nice. One of the things that has kind of always been in the back of my mind is what it would be like to get the upgraded screen. Of course, they have these for F-150s, it being the most popular truck, no big surprise. One of the things that it's seemingly promising is that you get this upgraded center stack, as far as upgraded in the sense features, but also aesthetics as well, where you kind of get the more modern F-150 look. So that's what we have today. I'm going to install one of these in my 2015 F-150. So I'm going to go through some of this headache for you and hopefully provide you some feedback so you can make a good sound decision on your own. Now there's different variations of this, different manufacturers. The one that I have is called Pentohoi, and I'm going to install it, go over the pros and cons that I think that this unit provides. And then, like I said, hopefully you can make your own decision on if this is something that you want to go forward with on your truck. We're going to get into unboxing first, then the install, then I'll go over some of the pros and cons. Let's get into it.
We get dealt the hand, now to play the cards. Gotta learn the system, try to play the odds. We embrace support, stay away from frauds. Put our hands together, look up and pray to God that we make it to the finish line and reach our goals. Many out here preaching freedom, but teach control. Surrounded by chaos, but we looking for order. As a youth, didn't search, now my time's getting shorter. I'm looking for answers now, in many different areas. I'm pressed for time, wanna bypass barriers. Hoping to skip from step A to step Z. Progress is linear, go to step B for a sturdy foundation. I know it sounds ancient, teach a man a fish still has application. No basic, listen, embrace the wisdom that's passed on. Don't erase that system. We take what we're given, then we settle in. Don't change how we're living, how unsettling. Same old position, need a new frontier. Make a transition, let's move on from here. There's a way to make things better. I know that there's a way to make things right. Been pointing fingers here and there forever. Time to look inside.
So I'm not going to go over disassembly of this. I do have this in some other videos, so if you need more step-by-step on how to just access this, check out the videos. But usually most of my videos, what I've done is just work right here on the head unit, or here. So then at this point I would just be removing the bolts on the sides here and taking these out. Now I got to remove these trim pieces, so this will be a bit newer, these trim pieces here. So in order to do that on the sides here, I am going to have to remove down here so I can access or cleanly get these guys on. All right, so this essentially just pulls straight away, but keep in mind, because I noticed these little retaining clips fall off. I can't with my freaking hand in the way, but there, that one right there. So just make sure we gotta put those back on before we seal everything back up. But yeah, we do need to get this out just so we can see how it overlaps right at this section, right over here on this trim piece, which we're needing to take out. Which would be nice, because now I can get this right here, this wire here is actually for my controller for my sub, so I can tuck it in a little better once I get this piece out. But yeah, I'll get that out. All right, there's a bolt here in the footwell that I missed. I'll make sure I get that so I can pull this trim piece all the way out. Remove that, and then I also removed this piece here. Oops, it's like this. This piece here is sitting, there was a 7mm bolt there, and then on the other side, so I removed those two 7mm to get this out, because this, you can kind of see it's secured in there and keeping this trim piece nice and retained tight in there. So get that removed too. So now I should be able to remove this guy, but I'm gonna need my second hand to do so. But once you get that, looks like it just unclips. Be careful though not to yank too hard, because the selector knob is, you can see in the back, harnessed in, so you don't want to rip that. But Let me get this out and then show you what it looks like. So if you lift up your center console, pry this piece up from here first. I found if I just stuck my trim tool in and kind of pried it up here, get this lifted up, and then if you leave these guys secured and then yank this back, it will more easily disconnect this retaining clip, because what I did initially is I removed this piece and then it came out together here, this still attached, and then I had no resistance to pull back. And now that I've disconnected my negative terminal, I can't move my shifter back, which would have been nice too, I guess, maybe as an alternative option, but it's locked in park right now. Leave it retained in there, then pull it back. Then once you get this disconnected, then I removed all these guys. It was a lot easier. But now I'm going to remove this other side. Once I get that removed, I should be able to disconnect these guys. Oh yeah, when I remove this side, do keep in mind you do have this here, so you want to make sure to unplug that before you just yank on that. Yeah, then I'm going to just remove all these bolts here so I can get the screen removed, as well as the CD player unit here. But yeah, once we get that, I think that'll be pretty much full disassembly, and then we could start inserting in the new stuff. Now I got all the bolts removed, taking the screens out. If you've seen my car ABC video where I installed CarPlay into Ford Sync 2, I got all kinds of stuff going on back here. So I'm just going to disconnect all the wiring and stuff that I installed. Kind of start with a clean slate again. Both the upper screen and the lower entertainment stack there with the CD player removed. Despite the head unit having compatibility with aftermarket units where you can like plug in RCA, so I could plug these directly into the unit. I'm going to keep this because even though I could transition that over, I do have also future video that would benefit from keeping this setup. So I'm going to maintain that. I should still have functionality with my sub and my amp. Remove this whole unit. You should still have this harness though that I am tapping into. So I will be using that. But just FYI, I obviously am also going to reuse, like here, I'm going to use the 12 volt socket and the plug. So we're going to remove those out of the back there. And then similarly, I'm going to reuse the 4-wheel drive controller, so we're just going to remove that from the back there, put it in on the trim pieces on the new unit. On the back side, there's these little guys that you just press in, and you should be able to push this through. It's got 3 of them, 1, 2, and 3. So once you get those pressed in, it should slide out. You don't need to unscrew these. Clip these guys in, see how they fit. Okay. So it appears you need to transfer basically the internals on this trailer brake control into the one they provide, because the fitment is slightly different, and you can see just by looking at the faces that this one's considerably larger and does not fit in clearly in the front, and through the back it won't either, where this one does. And obviously they have the cutouts in the back to accommodate for the plug, so it looks like we need to transfer that over. It would appear the trailer brake control setup they offer does not work. The problem is, let me show you, this little circuit board over here that's standing up, it's perpendicular with this flat one here. This one right here is too tall. So it is too tall to fit in this narrow space that they provide you with this unit. It hits here, this little curved section. So it grooves down too far and I can't get it in there. So I reached out to the manufacturer, and the suggestion I was given was to modify the trailer brake control housing that they provide. You can see in these photos here, this is the modification they suggested. They actually sent me these pictures, and I didn't feel comfortable leaving my trailer brake control electronics exposed like this. So I opted to not modify it as suggested and just put my original one back in its location. Through the opening in the dashboard, it's still accessible and usable, so far from a clean cut fit and finish. For those who don't have trailer brake control, there is a cover plate, just like there is for the trailer backup assist, if you don't even have this. Wanted to point that one out to you guys. Let's see the four-wheel drive selector. That one snaps right in. All right, so a lot of the harnesses make a lot of sense. You plug them in. Just wanted to make sure that these ones didn't get missed, so I wanted to point them out real quick. So this guy here, the antenna, and then this one here. It's like a micro USB that plugged in here. So those two. And then this one here, from the manufacturer, they say you don't need to use this any longer, so I'm leaving that one disconnected. Because the other ones made a lot of sense as far as where to plug them, wanted to point those ones out because these are just smaller. GPS and the 4G antenna, I recommend still laying flat. I'm gonna try to tuck them down under here. There's like a little section kind of out of the way. I should be able to run the cords right through here, and then obviously connect it to the unit. So that's the plan. All right, so I did the 4G over here to the right, GPS to the left. You can kind of see the cable split there, but that's where I got them set up. With this kind of main harness, plugged it into these three. It's pretty straightforward, again, because they're very size specific, so they'll kind of only fit in the one. So these three plugs I plugged in. From the original, you do reuse these buttons. Pretty straightforward. Press these guys in here on the back side when you're trying to take them out. If you press these in on, see on the top and bottom here, those get reused here and here. So those are in there now, so I should be able to plug those up. These top guys here. On the back side, you can kind of see these two red covers are on the 4G GPS. Yeah, then you also see, obviously you got your series of connections, plugs here. Uniquely fit, so you can't really, it's hard to plug the wrong thing on the wrong spot. Let's get things plugged up. All right, so I got things plugged in on the back side, and these guys up here connected. I got it just kind of sitting right now. The holes line up with these top mounted screw holes, so that's just to kind of see where the fitment's supposed to be. I did leave accessories I don't have plugged in yet, and then the lower half, which is basically climate control, which is what these were plugged into before. This is kind of where I'm at the moment. Obviously don't want to button things up in case when I turn this thing on, I have to take things apart to fix it. So I'm going to try to get the lower half section done here first, and then reconnect the negative on the battery, see if we can't get some power going to this thing. All right, so I had everything connected up, only to find out that I cannot get the lower half section in with the shifter here. I'm on an incline, so the thing that I should have done in the beginning is put some wheel chocks on the tire, around the tires. Put this thing in neutral, would have made this much more accommodating to insert that. But here we are, so I'm going to try and see if I can get the lower half in first and then do the top section, despite the directions guiding you to do the top part first. So let's see. All right, a couple things I'm noticing while doing the bottom section here. First, simply this cord that it has, the one that looks like it's set up for, I think it's the audio source button. Got this plug here. I'm gonna run that down through the opening in the bottom and come up to the top so I can plug that in, because I'm assuming that's gonna have to go into the top part here. But more importantly, right here, the climate controls. So the factory setup, it's got it taped in. This side right here is very short. This side's got a little bit more length because in the factory setup, that's accommodating. But for this one here, and then here, it is actually vice versa. The plugs are swapped. So this connection is supposed to go to the far side and this one to the near side. And it looks like it flips upside down as well. So probably gonna need to relieve some of this by cutting the tape so we can get a little bit more length out of this guy, but something worth noting because it is slightly different. That's what we gotta do. And one more thing is that this connection is so loose. Like I could put barely any force into this thing and it comes right out. There's no retaining mechanism to click this into place. You can see that the factory setup has a much more substantial setup. Here, this clip to release it usually, this thing just slides right over it. When I was disconnecting this, it just slid right off again. So that's something to keep note of when you're setting this up. This thing is easily sliding right off. So yeah, I might have to figure out some solution for retaining this a little bit better. All right, test run. First boot up. So that's so far working. The directions say step 47, click apply, which doesn't really help any. Local application, that's what it's talking about. Click on settings, click on factory settings. Enter password 3368. Confirm. Click on the vehicle model selection. Yeah, so this is what is needed to get this dialed in. We need to get this one set up right. So in selecting this setup for my climate control system, I noticed that the features, they do operate. AC, I can turn on the heat, I can select the vents, but the problem that I noticed is the on-screen climate control settings, they don't update appropriately, if at all. And I could also not figure out a clear-cut way to make the temperature settings actually show Fahrenheit. You can see here it's listed at 27 degrees Fahrenheit, but I can never get that to adjust no matter the temperature I change it to. And the knob settings seem to be reflecting an accurate number. So the digital readout on the knob itself, that is updating as I spin and turn the knob. It's just not reflecting that on the on-screen system. And I tried to go through the different settings. The only one that seemed to have some type of change was the air panel update, which seems to make logical sense, but even when I selected that one and was able to see like airflow increase and decrease, like I could see the fan speed, the temperature setting was not reflecting right. I never got that to accurately reflect properly on the onboard screen. But like I said, the dial knobs seem to be correct. It's installed. Things seem to be functioning. I'll show you the backup. Throw in reverse. Camera comes up. You can hear my proximity warning beeping. The climate controls, I'm still kind of tinkering with that a little bit. I'm going to mess with that more over the coming days. Give you guys updates on that. All right, so that is the install of the unit, and I just wanted to review it a bit and kind of give you some pros and cons and break it down that way. I've had it for about a week, so I've definitely got to encounter some stuff and experience it a little bit so that I can speak a little bit more from a place of experience. Let's get into that. Now, starting off with the pros, one of the obvious is the larger and more legible screen. So moving from that 8-inch screen that I had from stock, the larger screen is definitely nicer, specifically with navigation, where I'm trying to kind of identify, a street name or maybe a house number, and seeing it on the larger screen definitely makes that quite easier while I'm driving. Another thing is the CarPlay connectivity. So this head unit is using CarLink as the application that connects to CarPlay. I haven't had any issues with connectivity. With this CarLink one on this unit, it has been working well and consistently. Another positive is clearly that this has way more features. So one of the features that I've used through my short time with it already is I was watching a movie while I was waiting for somebody to wrap up something. It took a little longer than expected, so I just pulled up the application, started watching a movie, which I could not do with my standard Ford Sync system, obviously. And although movies might not be necessary for you, there is the accessibility to the Google Play Store with this being an Android head unit. So there's just, so many doors open once you have access to that Play Store. So there's a lot of features and capabilities that the head unit has once you start downloading applications. And one of the other things that I kind of liked too was with the Ford Sync 2 system, even though I did have navigation built in, it was so outdated, the hardware as well as the maps. The graphics, just so much of it was so old and outdated. It wasn't as useful, and we just get so spoiled with, the navigation on our phones and it being so updated and recent. This kind of gave me a taste of that too, where I do enjoy having a native like map application on the head unit just in case I lose service with my cell phone. This allows for that because I can download an application through the Google Play Store, have that on the unit itself, as well as download maps locally, so I don't need internet service to use the mapping system should I lose cell service with my phone. The head unit also has the ability to adjust music, so if you are an audiophile, I guess that can be considered a pro. I did mess with it slightly, a little bit, but didn't dive too deep into it because I was pretty satisfied with the default setup the way it was. And again, another positive is that this thing has so much customization for the buttons and controls, so you can really set it up how you like, get it dialed in to your liking. I mean, you can change wallpapers. It's got a default wallpaper and a default graphic with a like a red truck that comes up, an F150. I think it's a Raptor that comes up, but you can switch that out. Like I made an animated photo of my car and just uploaded that to the unit and used that. It does have some programmable hard buttons, which I touch on briefly. Button that I programmed that made a lot of sense for me was being able to switch to and from CarPlay. You can do it using the touchscreen, and it takes you a couple screens to get through to get back to CarPlay, and I didn't like that. It felt too distracting while driving, so being able to have that quick access button and program it the way I like was very useful. I can just hit that button and it'll go back to CarPlay. And yeah, so you can do that here on local app under MCU key. So I programmed it here. To program these, what you do is you hit the start button, then press the button you want. So you hit start. That activates the system where you can then start programming these buttons. These three at least. I haven't tried doing others, but that. Then you press the button, press the feature, and then once you're done programming, you just hit end. The default OS system on this, on the main screen, there's these tiles that you can swipe through. These are customizable as well, so you can pick a certain application that you want to shortcut to. You can also rearrange the tiles, so if you like them in a certain sequence, that's something you can do. There's just a lot of customization you can do with this unit, and that's kind of nice that you can tailor it to your needs and your liking. And then some of the negatives that I ran into, I touched on it on the video, but the trailer brake control was kind of a disappointing thing to run into, where the modification that they want you to do is, it's not very confidence inspiring for the longevity of your trailer brake controller being exposed like that. So didn't like that. That was probably the biggest negative that I ran into with the installation. And another thing I touched on that I didn't like was the on-screen climate control. It wasn't as detrimental to the experience as the trailer brake control, but the fact that I could never get the on-screen climate control systems to mirror what I had down on the physical hard buttons, it's kind of annoying. Definitely something to point out and put in the con category. Other con that I noticed was I went through setting up your vehicle, making sure that you have the right selection. And mainly I talked about how that selection was necessary for the climate control, but it is also true that that's important for your vehicle settings to pop up. So if you have the wrong vehicle selected, the vehicle settings button at the bottom of the screen on the main menu, it will just say that there's no settings. But once you have the right vehicle selected, it will pull up some settings that you can adjust. One of those settings being interior lighting, the ambient lighting, and the brightness of it. So you could adjust that on the Ford Sync 2 system. You can do that on this system as well, once you have the appropriate vehicle selected in the factory settings. Although you can change the ambient lighting, one of the factory settings in the Ford Sync 2 system that I didn't find in this is being able to access the keypad pin for the door. Although it's not a feature that I use very often, it is a nice feature to have access to. And if I wanted to change the pin, it would be very nice that, to have access to that in case it were to be found out. And I know this is a feature that maybe somebody in a different circumstance might use regularly. So I wanted to point that out if that is something that you use on a regular basis. And lastly, one of the bigger cons that I've noticed with this specifically is not friendly for those who maybe have some difficulty with technology. Not to say I'm some savant with technology by any means, that's not true, but just my experience. If you've been with the channel for a while, I used to exclusively work with BMW. I was a product specialist, so I kind of have a background in understanding the thought process behind how they're executing some of these things, at least at the manufacturer level. Even with that background, trying to get through this and navigate through some of the settings and options and figure out how some of these things work, it was difficult for me. So I can only imagine that this is going to be tenfold. If you have difficulty operating your iPhone, you're probably going to run into even more difficulty operating this head unit. There could be some stuff that I ran into that there is a fix for, and I just couldn't figure it out. And that goes to my point that it's not necessarily user-friendly with how I would think you would be able to figure out an answer to some of these questions that I ran into. And kind of along the lines of the user face being clunky, I'd also say that I've noticed on some of the physical hard buttons that I do need to give it a second press sometimes, where it doesn't get my initial press for whatever reason. So sometimes I have to give it a second press. I've run into that a couple of times with the physical hard buttons, not necessarily with the touchscreen or anything, specifically that, and I wanted to point that out. But yeah, that's my overview of the Pentohoi F150 head unit. I'll leave a link in the description if you guys want to check one out. Let me know if you have any questions or comments below. Try to respond to them and give you answers as best I can. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.